Frigidaire. It means the first electric refrigerator. The first compact electric range. Now, there's the Frigidaire Gallery Range with Symmetry double ovens. It's designed to cook multiple dishes at multiple temperatures, so you can prepare the entire meal at the same time. Frigidaire, over 90 years of legendary innovation.
See the full line of Frigidaire appliances at Ventura TV Electronics and Appliances.
Hi, I'm John Mallis. Welcome to this live edition of Connect with me on the showroom floor at Ventura TV on this day. Glad you're with us. It's Super Tuesday across the nation, my friends. We'll run down all the races, of course, all the states, and talk to our expert in the house. He hasn't been here in a while. You'll enjoy his commentary. You're welcome to call in 436-ME-TV, option 11. Back in a moment. Back here on the program on a Tuesday morning. Glad you are here. The telephone number is 436-ME-TV, option 11. If you want to call in and join in on the program, it should be a very interesting hour with our guest here talking about Super Tuesday. It all begins in a little while, of course. The voting is already taking place across 11 or 12 states across the nation, mainly in the South. So it should be an interesting evening tonight. Throughout the entire night, I'll probably be up late counting votes, reading articles, and doing all the rest. And you may be doing the same too. So call in and chime in. In the meantime, I want to mention that tomorrow we'll wrap up Super Tuesday with our guest Dennis Hart, and we'll talk about the results and what it all means and how this whole thing is going to shake out now, because still Ohio and Florida are yet to come in this race, both Democrats and Republicans. Anyway, you're watching us live as usual every Monday through Friday, live at 10 o'clock on Comcast, channel 375. And we're glad you are watching. If you can't watch the entire program, oh, by the way, you can catch us over the air broadcast too, 43.6 and 13.1. But if you can't catch this entire broadcast, you can catch the replays later today at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 13.6 YouTube, 8 o'clock tonight on 4.6 Biz TV as you're watching those election results. It should be a biggie. All three networks, ABC, NBC, CBS, are on tonight at 7 o'clock, along with CNN, Fox, MSNBC, and the usual suspects. So there'll be, and you can catch the results online too. So there's no escaping it. This is like the Super Bowl, of course, of politics. And so Republican frontrunner Donald Trump could seal his fate tonight if he dominates Super Tuesday, if he wins the majority, the 595 delegates that are up for grabs. He could simply lock up the nomination. But he's got two foes. He's got Marco Rubio. He has Ted Cruz. He is also fighting two other fronts besides the two people that he's trying to knock out tonight. Let's put up the latest poll. This is from CNN. ORC poll shows Trump with a whopping 33-point lead over Marco Rubio, 49% for Trump, 16% for Rubio, 15% for Ted Cruz. Ben Carson and John Kasich are far behind. But let's change it now. Some believe the Republican establishment is doing everything they can, everything in their power to knock out Trump. And now charges of racism against the New York developer for failing to denounce David Duke, that man on the screen, the former grand wizard of the KKK. Trump with his failure to denounce on CNN with Jake Tapper on Sunday.
Condemn David Duke and say that you don't want his vote or that of other white supremacists in this election?
Well, just so you understand, I don't know anything about David Duke, okay? I don't know anything about what you're even talking about with white supremacy or white supremacists. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know, did he endorse me or what's going on? Because, I know nothing about David Duke. I know nothing about white supremacists. And so you're asking me a question that I'm supposed to be talking about people that I know nothing about.
But I guess the question from the Anti-Defamation League is, even if you don't know about their endorsement, there are these groups and individuals endorsing you. Would you just say unequivocally you condemn them and you don't want their support?
Well, I have to look at the group. I mean, I don't know what group you're talking about. You wouldn't want me to condemn a group that I know nothing about. I'd have to look. If you would send me a list of the groups, I will do research on them, and certainly I would disavow if I thought there was something wrong. But you may have groups in there that are totally fine, and it would be very unfair. So give me a list of the groups, and I'll let you know.
Okay. I mean, I'm just talking about David Duke and the Ku Klux Klan here, but...
I don't know, honestly, I don't know David Duke. I don't believe I've ever met him. I'm pretty sure I didn't meet him, and I just don't know anything about him.
All right.
Live in our studio now is Victor Davis Hanson, the Martin and Illie Anderson Senior Fellow at the Hoover Institution at Stanford University. His focus, military history. He is also an author, a national columnist, a military historian. He lives just down the street in Selma. He's one of the smartest people I know. He follows this and has studied it for many years, my friends. I am so glad he is here in this day and time on Super Tuesday to break all this down for us. By the way, today accounts for about 58% of the total delegates needed for a Republican win by Donald Trump or maybe someone else. We'll take your calls at 436-ME-TV, option 11. Back with our program here in just a moment.
Ventura TV Appliance Center. We're the save energy, save time, save money place. The Energy Star qualified #1 rated high-efficiency Cabrio from Whirlpool Place. You heard right. Right now, save big on select Whirlpool Cabrio laundry pairs and pay no interest when paid in full within 6 months. At the hometown low price, think outside the big box place. Since 1951, Ventura TV Appliance Center. We're working hard to be your place.
Sports is now on KBHF 4.3.
Back here on the program, I'm so glad to welcome in Victor Davis Hanson. It's good to see you. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good to see you again. I'm so pleased you're here.
Thank you.
I really am. So we have a call. We might as well take it. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air. You got the first question.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. You were talking about Donald Trump, so I've been following him very closely, as you know. He did denounce this whole KKK thing last Friday, and in relation to this CNN thing on Sunday, what I was told by somebody who worked for his campaign is he said he didn't know. What he didn't know was not that he didn't know who David Duke was, but that he wasn't aware of these other groups that supposedly endorsed him. Now, since Sunday, David Duke has gone public saying that he never endorsed Trump at all. And I'm really glad that you have Victor Davis Hanson on today. He is so wonderful. Thanks for taking my call.
Okay. Go ahead, Victor.
Well, I don't think it's much of a story. I think Trump handled it clumsily. Everybody knows who the KKK is. I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt he didn't hear right, but I think he was just sort of a deer in the headlights that moment. And then he said, I'm not going to condemn anybody till I know who they are and what they said. He didn't know they didn't quote what David Duke had actually said. So I think part of the problem is that there's one thing about what he actually says and then one thing about how to deal with the media. So if you're any major candidate and you hear the word KKK, that's an automatic Pavlovian response. I condemn them. And he didn't do that, so his enemies made a lot of it. And then he did condemn them, and he did, as this caller pointed out, he had done earlier Friday. So I think people will be a little bit upset and it'll go away. It's not a major story. I look at the Black Panthers and Reverend Wright, somewhat analogous. They don't have the violent history in the sense of organizational history and numbers of the KKK, but I'm not a big Trump fan, but when I get the hysteria, I see the hysteria about Trump, I think, wow, what did he do that Obama hasn't done? Obama endorsed Reverend Wright, who said blank, blank America, and it was probably the most anti-Semitic public figure that we've had in a generation. He just said Jews, Jews, Jews. So I wish he had have condemned them. I think he was good to do it, but he didn't do it wisely.
Right. Caller, you're on with Victor Davis Hanson. Go ahead.
Yeah, Victor, let me ask you a question here. I've never seen a Republican, cutting down each other as much as they want to get rid of Trump.
Yeah.
But they have to understand, the more they do things to him because he's popular, he's going to get more votes.
No, you're absolutely right. Look at Trump's enemy. When the Pope says he's not Christian, or when Megyn Kelly gets on there with blonde hair and swishes it around and winks at you, and then she's outraged that Trump says something sexist, or when Vicente Fox uses the F word, all of that channels into Trump. And when the Republican establishment tries to denounce him, that's not the way to deal with him. The way to deal with him is, why do people like this guy, and how do I appeal to their anxieties in a way that would win them over? And so far they haven't been able to do that. Time is of the essence on this race. Trump's got to really wind it up, I think, this month, because the longer he goes on, this David Duke story or whatever, these gaffes, he's not a professional politician. And he's got a Trump University lawsuit he's facing. He's going to get pressure to release his tax returns, which I don't think will be good for him, because I think they'll show that he didn't make as much money as he claimed, that he hasn't given to charities as he claimed, and he doesn't pay the tax rate that you and I do. Nevertheless, if he wraps it up, then the Republican establishment has nowhere to go, and they will start defending him, as most of them will. If they drag it out, Cruz and Rubio can just not lose. I think by August, Trump will have some problems with his tax returns, his lawsuits, and these daily gaffes that he's making. So I think time is the real essence. You've got to win by April 1st, or he's going to be bled by 1,000 cuts.
Wow, you think really? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Let me answer real quick.
Yeah.
If anybody's going to beat Trump with their own tax, whatever, one of the two, let's say Ted Cruz, somebody has to step aside and let one of those guys win, maybe the nomination or whatever,
No, you're absolutely right.
I don't like either one of them. I didn't think that, what's his name, Rubio was like the way he was, saying all these little stuff that they shouldn't even about his hand and all. I mean, I took it offensive, you know what I'm saying?
No, I agree with you. I think he got down in the gutter. That was stupid to do. And the problem that the base has with both of them is half the people, 19%, 18%, like Cruz, but they don't think he can win. The other half think that Rubio could win and beat Hillary, but they're not convinced he's conservative enough. And then you've got Kasich and you've got Carson that are siphoning off 12%. So you've done the math. We all have. And some polls have Trump from 33 to 48%. But if you take Carson and Kasich and then one of the other two and put them all together, then there's a fighting chance for that candidate. But ego being what it is and professional, I mean, Carson believes he's viable. So does Kasich, which is absurd. So I think Trump for Trump to win, he's got to clean up his, be a little bit more sober and judicious about what he says, and he's got to make sure they fight with each other and they split that vote. And he's got to wrap it up pretty soon before these lawsuits and his taxes become an issue.
The thing is that the last two, Carson and candidates, if they quit right now, I mean, they say, hey, we're not going to make it anyway, those votes will go to Trump. I guarantee you those votes will go to Trump.
I think the Carson votes, you're right, that 3 to 5% will go to Trump. I think the Kasich 3 to 5 will probably go to Rubio. And if you've noticed that Rubio's has gone up a little bit because Bush got out and he's got a lot of big money. But I think most of your analysis is right.
Thank you, caller. Let me take a break in a minute here, but I want to ask you, Victor, about this KKK thing.
Yeah.
And that is, David Duke said this about Donald Trump: a vote against Donald Trump would be equivalent to treason to your own heritage. Now, Trump has all kinds of advisors. I'm sure somebody told him about this. I'm sure he was aware of that quote. He denounced them on Friday, denounced them on Facebook, on Twitter. Do you think it's possible that in Trump's mind he's thinking, look, Super Tuesday's coming up. Most of these states are in the South. We know what kind of people live in the South. We know what kind of people are supporting David Duke. They live in the South, and maybe Trump was kind of backing off a little bit,
No, I think you're absolutely right. There's at least a 50% chance that he knew who David Duke was, and I know he knows who the KKK is, and he just wanted to back off because most of his support in these Super Tuesday are Southern white Democrats, working class people.
And do some like the KKK down there?
They don't like the KKK officially, but they're tired of the whole I'm this hyphenated group, I'm that hyphenated group. And what Trump is, the left is right about one thing. Trump is a manifestation of working class white people who are sick of two things. They're sick of wealthy white liberal people saying, oh, you have white privilege, when people who go to Harvard, where I work, Stanford, really do have white privilege. But the guy who's a mechanic in Fresno or drives a forklift in Bakersfield who happens to be white does not. And they're tired of professional elite minorities who are the diversity czar at this university, or I'm interested in my heritage here, and they see their race as essential rather than incidental to their existence. So those two groups alienate the white working class. And Trump, as you pointed out, uses coded language as much as he can. If that's what he did, he's playing with fire, because finally you can't be ambiguous about the KKK.
Yeah.
And I think his advisors, after he whatever happened, I don't know, I'm not going to prejudge him, but whatever happened, they got to him and said, you got to condemn these people.
Yeah.
Because the KKK remember, it started out after the Civil War. Nathan Bedford Forrest founded it, the Southern General. It was a pretty creepy group.
Yeah. Caller, you're on the line. Let's take this call and we'll go to break. You're on with Victor Davis Hanson.
Okay. Well, yeah, just to add on what Mr. Hanson was saying, excuse me, but I refer to Washington, D.C. as Vatican, D.C. And it's kind of like a religion. And all the politicians there are casting word magic at Donald Trump, a businessman. Okay? And so here we are in the same paradigm that we deal with every day as businessmen, is that we have government on one side and we have business on the other, and it's their religion. It's forced on us as children. We're forced to be American. To be part of this government, we have no choice. And so, that the current establishment is afraid of a man coming from the outside, because it affects their, the Republican and Democratic religions.
Yeah. Okay, I agree with you.
Just like I hope I'm accenting what you just said.
Yeah, I agree, but here's the problem. I don't like the Republican establishment any more than you do. But here, let's just be empirical and look at the last challengers to the Republican establishment. And there's been 3 or 4 Trump-like figures. Ross Perot was another billionaire. He ran twice, 92 and 96. He had a particular agenda. He got out in 92 because he said the Democratic Party and Bill Clinton were what he really liked, and he didn't want to split that vote. So he basically endorsed Clinton. And then we had Jesse Ventura in Minnesota. And Jesse Ventura just endorsed Bernie Sanders, by the way. He was a disaster. Then we had Arnold, who said he was a real conservative. And my problem with all these people from business who say that they're going to shake up the Republican establishment, they're not conservatives. So when I look at Trump, I don't care what the establishment says about him. I just want to be empirical. I say to myself, what was his position on Obamacare? What was his position on abortion? What was his prior position? I wrote something in 2012 how Trump was a big supporter of open borders and criticized Romney for what he called a silly idea and crazy idea of self-deportation, which meant if you were illegally and you went to the DMV and they found you were illegal, they'd say, go back to your country. He made fun of that. I could go on, but if you get away from the hype, until about 3 years ago, Donald Trump was what I would call a comfortable liberal Democrat, basically.
Let me interrupt. Is that you use the term conservative like we can draw it and actually pass it to somebody. It is kind of casting word magic. People 1,000 years from now will not have any idea what the word conservative means.
No, wait, let me. I don't care what label you use. I'm just saying that if you take 10 or 12 issues and you put them on the table and you ask most Trump supporters, do you agree with these issues? They will say yes. And I say, all I'll tell you is those same issues Donald Trump was pretty much against 5 to 8 years ago. And he's also said things that give the impression that if he were to be president whether it's eminent domain for quote-unquote economic reasons, or whether it's silencing First Amendment rights by suing people you don't like or going after critics, that they don't agree with those issues that his supporters agree with. So the question is, are his supporters dumb? No. They're angry. And so they look at Trump and they say, I don't care what his issues are. He's a strong leader, and he hates political correctness, and he hates the same things, at least this cycle, that I do. And they don't care. But if they just take a deep breath and say, I am a person that has a certain position on these issues, does Trump fit that position? I think they would say no. But they would rather be wrong with Donald Trump than right with Rubio or Cruz.
That's interesting.
Okay, my point is that, these, it's a recorded history spell. I mean, it's like, we're great that we have recorded history. It's a wonderful thing, but that doesn't mean we need to be slaved by it. And so if somebody's adaptable and changes with the times, I mean, this is a digital age. Things are liquid. We're no longer from books. And so it's a whole different, psychologically, it's a different
I'm not saying that you can't change with the times, but I'm just saying that within this latest manifestation and incarnation of Trump, he doesn't agree with his supporters. He just said the other day that he supports the Obamacare mandate. I could go on. He's just said that Planned Parenthood does wonderful health things. They really don't. I mean, that's a very small percentage of their budget. So I could go on, but it's not just that he's contradicting what he said. He says things that his supporters don't believe in. That's all.
Okay. Thank you very much, caller. I appreciate it. We got to go to a break, and something very interesting you said here, and I'll have you elaborate on it after the break, and that is some of these supporters for Trump, they'd rather lose with Trump than win with Rubio and Cruz.
Yeah, I think they would.
I'll have you elaborate on that after the break. Victor Davis Hanson is here. He's a national syndicated columnist. You can catch his columns every Sunday. Well, he's around the nation, but every Sunday in the Fresno Bee. And so he is also an author, a military historian. 436 MeTV Option 11, running down and breaking down Super Tuesday, and we're back in just a moment.
Not sure what you're watching? Want to see what's coming up next? Or just want to browse what's on without the hassle of flipping channels? Your wish has come true. Now you can view schedules for all the digital TV channels available in the Central Valley. Get local weather updates and forecasts, and listen to nationally syndicated Biz Talk Radio, all on KVHF 4.1. Rescan your TV now, then tune in to Digital Channel 4.1 to start enjoying the all-new TV Guide.
When you're looking for KitchenAid innovation and quality, who has the answers, the selection, the price? Ventura TV Appliance. With billions in nationwide appliance buying power, more than Home Depot and Best Buy combined, we'll help you save. Our low prices on Energy Star qualified KitchenAid appliances save you energy and money, and pay no interest on select models when paid in full within 12 months. Ventura TV Appliance, serving you since 1951.
Back here on the program with Victor Davis Hanson. I'm so glad he's here on Super Tuesday to break down a lot of things for us here. Let me have you elaborate before we get to the call. The Trump supporters would rather lose with Donald Trump than win with Rubio or Cruz. Can you explain why?
Well, it's not that they're not interested in an agenda or a political program as much as they are the iconic status and what Trump represents. Let me just tell you what. If I talk to a Trump guy, here's what they tell me. I turn on the news, I turn on the TV, and here's a Black Lives Matter at the Oscars, and they're saying it's not fair. But then I turn on the TV, and 75% of the NBA are black. So what is it? You have to have quotas by racial proportion at the Oscars, but not the NFL, not the NBA? That gets them angry. They turn on the TV. Leonardo DiCaprio, the actor, is lecturing them on being green, and the guy has
global warming.
Yes, yeah. And he burns 5 gallons a minute in his private jet. So then they're saying, wow, I like that. And they're saying, you don't pay your fair share, but these guys pay out the nose, 50% state and federal, and that 48% of Americans don't pay any tax, and yet they're told, you're greedy? And I could go on popular culture, Beyonce. Oh, I'm going to protest Black Lives Matter with bandoleros, bullets, praising a convicted murderer in Oakland, while she's saying the Black Panthers are great, which are just as racist as the KKK. What I'm getting at is this country enrages people. And so Trump and illegal aliens. He says, well, they'll make Mexico build the wall. Ha, 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 that's stupid. Well, all you have to do, I live in Selma, and I go right by the Western Union office, and people who are illegal go in there, and they send back about $300 a week to Mexico. A lot of them are in public assistance. All you have to do is say, if you're not here legally, 10%. Mexico got $28 billion last year. South America and Latin America total 65. 10% tax pays for the wall. So he's not as crazy as you see. I'm not a Trump supporter, but I understand why people are angry. And so far Cruz and so far Rubio and especially Jeb Bush were not able to articulate that anger. All they can do is, all my friends that are pundits at Stanford where I work and East Coast, they make fun of these people. Oh, they're just Trumpsters. Oh, they're ignorant. Oh, I would never vote for them. Okay, I get that. But for them, illegal immigration is not sending your kid to school where half the class doesn't speak English, or waking up in the morning and having a car abandoned in your house. Like in Carruthers the other day where somebody drove into it. Or for me, 3 accidents where the driver had no license, no insurance, no registration, and on 2 occasions left the scene of the accident. Hit my daughter, left the scene, hit me, left the scene of the accident. Or when I go into the store and I have to see somebody who does not speak Spanish, does not speak English, here illegally, speaks Mixotec with 4 EBT cards. It just happened yesterday. I don't mind all that, but I don't like to hear that that person is a dreamer who's going to be a brain surgeon and just came as an act of love. Because I know that the Mexican Constitution says in it that if you come to Mexico illegally, you will be deported. If you come to Mexico illegally and work, you will be jailed for 2 years. And if you come to Mexico and you're not Mexican, you are in danger of, quote, changing the racial essence of Mexico. It's the biggest racist country in the world. So for people to come here and then start lecturing a very generous host about how racist they are, enrages people. These people who are enraged are not racist.
And they're not crazy.
They're not crazy, but they are angry and they don't care about the particular issue. They just care about the degree of anger, and Trump has captured that. And there's elements in me that I can see why that is, but I want to see what he's for. I want to see his record. I don't see that. That's all.
Okay, caller, you're on the air with Victor Davis Hanson. Thank you for calling in.
Good morning, Mr. Hanson.
Good morning.
Before I get to my point, he said something very important. I'm Hispanic, born and raised in Texas.
Yes.
And let me tell you, people from Mexico criticize us, even though we're Hispanic. We're not liked. They say that because we were born in Texas that we are racist against the Mexican people from Mexico, but that's not true. And the point is, too, with Donald Trump, I can't believe he never heard of David Duke. I mean, who hasn't heard about David Duke unless he was up in the moon somewhere? But everybody has heard about David Duke. And as far as his illegal immigration thing, how true, or have you heard anything about that he brought people from Holland illegally to work on some of his projects?
Yeah, well, the whole issue is, I think, with illegal immigration is one of class. It really is. To the degree that you're affluent, you're all for it. And for the degree that you're middle class or impoverished, you're skeptical. I live in Selma, which is primarily a Hispanic community. When I see 2nd and 3rd generation Hispanics, they're not big supporters of illegal immigration because they came here legally. Their kids go to school. They get picked on by people here illegally in gangs. Mm-hmm. They'll tell me they want their kids to have competitive schools, and they can't when 1/3 of the class doesn't speak English and doesn't seem to feel it's a pressing need to speak English. So they're not big supporters. So when I hear that Trump gets 25% of the Hispanic vote or 30%, given the outrageous things he said about Hispanics, and everybody makes fun that can't be possible, I'm not sure it's not possible. So,
well, let me tell you one thing real quick here.
Yeah.
My daughters moved to Texas in 98 and 99. Now, my daughters don't speak Spanish. My sons don't speak Spanish. So when my daughters moved to Texas, they both got jobs at the school in Dallas. My daughter would call me every day, Mom, how do you say this in Spanish? Believe it or not, she learned Spanish in Texas because that first year she started at school, she was in charge of the registering. And that school year, believe it or not, she registered something like 700 illegal kids. None of them spoke
Well,
English.
Both of my brothers are.
Thank you for the call, by the way.
I have one brother married to someone from Mexico, and I have another brother whose children are half Mexican-American. And so I hear all of these issues. And this left-wing Republican establishment myth that there's all of these Latinos that are sympathetic to open borders is a very big simplification, believe me. Most of the Latinos that I know are middle class, upper middle class. They're very successful, they're very patriotic, and they're very worried about letting in 700,000 to 800,000 people from Oaxaca every year. They have practical worries over it. They don't like people being racist. They don't like people disparaging Mexican ancestry, but they're very worried about open borders.
Let me ask you something before we go to break here. Is it possible to be a conservative and still be in favor of abortion? Because abortion is a very personal issue.
Yes, it is.
It hits a lot of families personally. Some politicians, in fact, come out with a public stance on abortion and in their personal lives have something different.
Well, there's a spectrum on abortion. Most people on either side, there's certain positions that people, if you look at, I'm just quoting the polls now, agree with. Whatever your position is officially on abortion, most people on the left believe that if a baby is after 6 or 7 or 8 months, that's a viable fetus. I think it's 3 months, science says, but they do not like late-term abortions. They don't fight that as much. Most people on the right, not all of them, but most people say if somebody is a victim of incest or rape, they can see special cases for abortion. So the problem is in between. And if you're a conservative, I think that you believe that a child is a human being, and that to abort that person is murder. I happen to believe that.
But you have all these other conservative values like...
I understand that, libertarian values that say let people choose, but the problem, John, is it's an age-old ethical problem when you say, well, let people do on their own lives. Okay, so in Britain they have Sharia law. Let's just let these groups do what they want. We're going to be conservative, libertarian. Or, you know what? I'm Swedish American. There used to be Swedish blood feud. So if I have a cousin that I don't like and he treated me badly, can I go over there and kneecap him and just say, you know, this is a Swedish thing. The state has no business. No, because that's a crime against society, of going and using violence that's not state sanctioned. So that's what the argument is. You just can't kill a fetus that's viable because it's a private matter, because that person has protections under the Constitution as a living, breathing person.
All right. I'm glad Victor Davis Hanson is here, a nationally renowned columnist, syndicated columnist around the nation. You can catch his columns every Sunday in the Fresno Bee and around the nation. He is also an author, a military historian, works at the Hoover Institution at Stanford University. And this is Super Tuesday. We'll get into all the details about that in the second half of our program. 436-ME-TV, option 11, if you want to call in and weigh in. Back in a moment.
The following is another list of things you will not hear on MeTV programs. Man cave, baby bump, whatevs, double half-calf mochaccino, faux hog, redonkulous, totes adorbs, hella, holla, YOLO, cray-cray, and MeTV is still Kardashian-free. This is what you will hear on MeTV programs.
Bang! Welcome, Dana. The Twilight Zone. About the Bulls. I object, Your Honor.
Mr. Grant.
I hear you right. You heard me right.
MeTV. Thanks for listening.
Want to create something extraordinary? Create perfection. Our lifestyle appliances make it easy. KitchenAid, Ventura TV appliance, and you, when only the best will do.
Back here on the program on Super Tuesday, we'll see what happens tonight on the Republican side. Haven't even discussed the Democratic side yet. Caller, you're on the air quickly. We're kind of short on time now, so go ahead quickly with your question.
I'll make it real quick. We were talking about Hispanics and this and that and putting up a wall. But you know what? I get upset with my own people because a lot of them come from Mexico and all that, and when we get together, they call me sort of a racist because they say, well, aren't you a Mexican? I said, no, I was born here and raised here. I'm an American first. I'm a Mexican-American. How can you tell me I'm I'm a Mexican? And, you know, they got this mentality like a lot of the gangs, or what the Hanson or whatever, you know, and they want me to be like them, you know. We were born here, raised here, you know, have families here and all that, and yet our own people, well, supposedly for our own people from Mexico, the ones that come over, they get all this free stuff, okay? And I think the United States has been so caught up in this. Well, we feel sorry for them and all that, and they take advantage of it.
You know,
okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's all I want to say real quick.
I appreciate it.
I agree with you. I don't. If Ted Cruz or Marco Rubio is Latino, is the nominee, do you really think I would vote for Hillary Clinton because she's so-called white? I wouldn't do it under any circumstances. When I go to Walmart in Selma, it's about 98% Latino. Every once in a while I'll see a white guy walking around. He looks at me as if we have special affinity now because we're white. That never happened before. I don't have any special affinity. Every once in a while somebody from Sweden will be traveling, a journalist, they'll say, Victor Hanson, I want to interview you. Hey, you're Swedish. I don't know what Swedish is. I'm proud of my ancestors and all that. But the point I'm getting at is I don't have any special allegiance to anybody who happens to look like I do. I only have allegiance to fellow Americans. So I would vote for a conservative African-American Latino in 2 seconds over a liberal so-called white person. And I resent it when other groups don't do that. And I understand the historical discrimination and all that, but Latinos are really getting to the point now where they're individual voters, they're not block voters. And I really resent when people try to characterize them and catalog them as just...
Are there any block voters left?
Yeah, African Americans were 96% for...
Women? Are they
women
block
are
voters?
different. Well, women are 50-50 now, Democrat and Republican. The Democrats have been losing them. There are block subsets, gays, urban young women, and African Americans. And so that's what Hillary, when you hear Hillary Clinton with a fake Southern accent, and she talks about Black Lives Matter, she's trying to get a 94% black majority to offset who she alienates.
Quickly, I want to get into two other quick issues. One is listening to Rush Limbaugh just for a few minutes on the way to work, talking about the Republican establishment and why they are panicking today, why they don't understand all of this anger within the conservative base, within some people within the establishment, why there is this anger out there with voters. It's like a little temper tantrum. They think it's going to go away, but Limbaugh's argument is the establishment doesn't understand what's going on. Do you agree with that, number one? And number two, is Trump running as a conservative, or is he running as a moderate conservative? What's he running as?
To answer your first question first, I'm in a pretty good position because you're talking about my colleagues at the Hoover Institution, where I'm going there right after this. And then I just had lunch at a meeting this week with what I'd call the two most prominent Fox News pundits. And the answer is a lot of people make a lot of money, and they're insulated from your callers. So all my colleagues that live in Palo Alto or Los Altos Hills, they never see somebody who drives a forklift. So if a person drives a forklift, he's got to send his kids to the public schools. He can't afford to get his car hit by an illegal alien. He can't afford all of it. The people up there can. And their way of thinking, I will pay a particular bite because I got all this money. I feel good about myself. I'm very liberal. So a lot of it's class. And the second thing is Trump is running on class. He's not running on politics. He's running on class and emotion. He's basically turned the limousine liberal upside down.
So he's not thinking in his own mind, I'm a conservative.
He's nothing. He's nothing. He's saying to people, these guys are crooked. You know why they're crooked? Because I was crooked and I bought them off. He said that to Rand Paul right on the stage. He's saying to them, you don't like wealthy people? Either do I. I have a Brooklyn accent. you're suspicious of guys in suits and ties? So am I. You can trust me because I'm your fighter. I'm just like them, but I'm fighting for you. I'm a Trojan horse for the upper class, and they buy it.
But does the Republican establishment, do they not understand the anger out there? And is this just a temporary tantrum with the voters?
No, they don't understand it. They don't understand it because they have become very wealthy, Washington establishment, and they're bookends to the very liberal people. When you have David Brooks, quote-unquote conservative, saying that you should vote for Obama because he has a nice crease in his pants leg, or you have Rosh Douthat, the New York Times columnist, dreaming about killing Trump, it's because they're in a very insulated little world. They don't see anybody outside of it. They're elitist. They send their kids to prep school. They hang out with each other. They're like divorce lawyers. After the case, they go to the bar and drink and laugh at their clients. That's what they do about the Republican establishment.
So is Trump running his campaign the way he ran The Apprentice?
Basically.
Almost like a showman?
Yeah, of course he is. And that's why people, just like they voted for Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, let's put up the graphics on Super Tuesday. Let's go 1 through 3, Ara, because we're going to leave number 4 out. So there you go, Victor. And here's the thing about Super Tuesday that I found fascinating, and it's always been this way. You know, in some of these states, you have strictly Republican, you have strictly Democrat, and then in some states you have both Democratic and Republican. So some of these are caucuses, some of this is straight out voting. So put up number 3, if you would, and then stop right there. So 11 states, I believe, in all, as far as the Republicans are concerned. So why is Super Tuesday so important? Is it because of the delegates that are at stake?
Well, it's the delegates that are at stake, but it's more momentum because I think of all those states you put up, there's not one yet that's winner take all. So when Trump makes fun of Rubio and says, you haven't won a state yet, true, and so you can't win, not true, you can come in second or third and pick out delegates and do pretty well. But it's momentum. So I think what we're going to see tomorrow is that Trump won the vast majority, maybe not Texas, and he's got more delegates. But he hasn't put them away yet because both Cruz and Rubio got some delegates, and between them enough to represent an obstacle. So he's got to go into the winner-take-all, things like Florida or Ohio. When you start racking up winner-take-all and you get all of the delegates, then the game's over, if you can do that.
Just for example, on the Republican side, delegates, 50 are up for grabs in Alabama, 28 in Alaska, 40 in Arkansas, 76 in Georgia, 42 in Massachusetts, and on down the list. You go down to Texas, 155. On the Democratic side, if you win Texas, 251 delegates are at stake. But kind of the way it works is, and it's kind of confusing if you don't follow this very closely, delegates are awarded by congressional districts.
Yes.
Only the top 2 finishers will receive any of the delegates. Is that?
And I think that's not true of every state, but it's
most of them.
Most of them, but there's no winner-take-all is my point.
Yeah.
So either Rubio or Cruz will pick up delegates. How many, we don't know, but Trump can do fantastically well and win everything but Texas, but not come away with all the delegates. So that's why we're not going to find out tomorrow that Trump is the nominee or they have stopped Trump. But as I said earlier, Trump should, if he wants to be nominee, he's going to have to win these winner-take-all and put these candidates away and then tell the Republican establishment, I'm the only SOB you have. You may not like me, but I'm your SOB.
Yeah.
And then he can win. But if he doesn't do that, you know what I mean? Yeah.
And back to the Trump and KKK, I was doing a little research last night, and I found online the number of far right-wing racist groups that are backing Trump. One of them is called the neo-Nazi website, the Daily Stormer. Another is the American National Super PAC, making calls on behalf of Trump, saying that we don't need Muslims, we need smart, well-educated white people who will assimilate to our culture, vote for Trump. Also, the American Freedom Party, this is not hurting Trump. The Pope didn't hurt Trump.
Nope.
Immigration didn't hurt Trump. Women haven't hurt Trump. Who's gonna take Trump down if he's taken down at all? Will it be Trump himself?
It's like Barack Obama. In 2008, people were going to vote for him no matter what. So when he said that his mother was a typical grandmother who raised him and supported him and paid for his expensive, that she was a typical white person, or that when Reverend Wright started going off on Jews and hating America, or when Farrakhan endorsed him, it didn't hurt him. And he didn't have to dissociate, and because those were your extreme fringe base. I think Trump should, as he gets closer, he's got to at some point condemn those people, and he hasn't yet. At least he says he's going to.
We'll take a quick break. We'll come back and talk about Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton here. 436 Me TV option 11. Plenty of time left with Victor Davis Hanson.
Take a look at this. Let's play.
This is too hip for you. I'll slow down.
Let's play.
Watch all your favorite classic game shows on Buzzer TV, KBBC Digital Channel 13.7.
The new Frigidaire Professional line at Ventura TV Video Appliance. Enjoy generous-sized cooktops and sauté or simmer with ease, while true convection ovens offer even baking and juicy roasting perfection. Foods stay their freshest in spacious refrigerators with convenient controls and clear filtered ice and water. Easy to clean surfaces reduce fingerprints, and the quietest of dishwashers makes cleanup a snap. The new Frigidaire Professional line at Ventura TV Video Appliance.
Back here on the program, Victor Davis Hanson is here. Hillary and Bernie Sanders. Let's put up the picture of Bernie Sanders. My 14-year-old son, who is not old enough to vote, is Bernie Sanders crazy. He will be glued to the tube tonight to see what happens. He still thinks Bernie has a chance. How do you explain this phenomenon?
If I want to be a reductionist, I'd say everybody who has negative net worth is for a socialist. So until you're about 24, if you total up everything you owe on your credit card and your student loans versus your assets, you're underwater. So you want somebody who says, I'm going to take 90% tax rate and give it to you. And then after you're about 26 and you have children, you have a house or whatever, and you have some assets and you work, you say, I don't want that to happen. So socialism is always an appeal to taking someone else's money.
Yeah, so that's the phenomenon with him is that, like, for example...
Well, who are supporters? They're highly educated people, and they're of two types. They're young and have no net worth, the campus, and they're wealthy, largely wealthy white people who either have enough money that they think they couldn't take enough money from me. I'm a Hollywood star, or I'm a techie, and I like the idea of being liberal and socialist, but it really won't affect me.
Talking about free tuition for everybody. How are you going to pay for that?
You can't. But the point is, if they don't worry whether their tax rate's 40% or 50%, because they're making $1 million a year. So there's a few of those people, and then there's the other people that I would call them the frustrated intellectuals. And these are people who got degrees, they're teachers, they're writers, they're professionals, and they say, you know what? I'm brilliant. I can speak much better than that guy from India that runs a 7-Eleven, or I'm really a talented artist, and there's a guy who sells real estate who makes more money than I do. So these are people who are too educated and don't make what they think they deserve, and they're frustrated, and they become socialists. They're kind of snobs, actually, to tell you the truth.
How about Hillary Clinton? Let's put her photo up. You're talking about, Donald Trump being Teflon Don. What about Hillary Clinton? Everything rolls off her back.
Well, so far it has.
Oh,
but
Benghazi, the emails.
But she's got... we're obsessed with Trump, but that will pass. She's got 3 or 4 problems that won't, and that is this: if she is not indicted, you will see major people in the FBI probably resign, and that'll be an issue. If she pulls war on women again, you'll get Trump or somebody say, wait a minute, the biggest war on women was waged by your husband and enabled by you.
Could Trump pull out Lewinsky?
Oh, he will, of course. And then third,
pay her off and say, hey, come join me.
If you say I'm a Bernie Sanders, I'm the real Bernie Sanders Democrat, people are going to say, well, then how did you become worth with your husband $100 million in just 10 years if it wasn't by speaking to big banks and Wall Street to leverage your government service? So populism, problematic. War on women, problematic. Ethics, problem. She's got her own problems, and that's why that they all poll, even with this mess in the Republican Party, they poll neck and neck with Hillary.
So you think that Donald Trump could actually reach out to Monica Lewinsky and have her on the campaign trail?
I'm sure he will.
He'll try, huh?
Absolutely.
He'll pay her off.
I don't know if she'll do it, but he will. If he were to be the nominee, I think that Clinton would be flummoxed at first what to do with this nut, because on any given day he can say anything on stage, and I've never debated anybody like this. He could mention the way I look. He could say I'm too heavy. He could say I did cattle futures and made 1 to 1,000 profit. He can say anything, and you can't defend yourself against the unknown.
You know, New York Times article this morning that I just briefly read, it said this: several Democrats argued that Mrs. Clinton should be her party's nominee and would easily beat Mr. Trump. They were confident that his incendiary remarks about immigrants, women, and Muslims would make him unacceptable to many Americans. The question is, would it be unacceptable to most Americans?
That's a good question, because a lot of people feel that Barack Obama has been incendiary. I mean, Donald Trump didn't go to the National Prayer Breakfast and tell Christians not to get on your high horse or blame them for the Crusades, or he didn't say that Trayvon Martin is like the son I never had. You think that Trump would say, oh, I remember the O.J. trial, remember Nicole Simpson? She looks like the other daughter I never had. Nobody. So we're so acclimatized to Obama that we forget he's pretty radical himself. And Trump is the bookend to him. And he's not doing too much differently than Obama. He hasn't said yet, if I go to a knife fight, I bring a gun. Or, hey, you Trump supporters, I want you to get in their face. Or, you know what, those people in the inner city, Detroit, they cling to their guns, they cling to their crazy attitude. Those are things Obama does all the time. Or Trump didn't say to a bunch of poor white people, hey, you guys, I want you to punish our enemies at the next election. That's what Obama did with Latinos. So Obama's been pretty out there, and so far Trump is sort of like Obama, I think.
Also in that New York Times article, really interesting, it said the case against Trump will be prosecuted on 2 levels, according to Jeff Guerin, a Democratic pollster, and that Mrs. Clinton's chief strategist in 2008. The first is going to be temperament, and whether he is suited to become commander-in-chief. That's the question right there. Mr. Guerin said that, echoing conversations that have dominated Democratic circles recently, the second will be based on whether he can really be relied on as a champion for anyone but himself. Talking about Donald Trump.
Yeah. Well, those are legitimate, and Cruz and Rubio are making that very case right now, and the Democrats will use that oppositional resource that they provided them. But again, I mean, when Hillary Clinton is told that 4 people died, and she said, oh, don't worry, to the families of the dead over the dead bodies, and said this was due to a video maker, and then they went out and jailed some guy on a trumped up. That's pretty radical. Or you say right in a congressional hearing, what difference does it make? So they'll go back and forth, but I don't see anything much more radical that Hillary's done than what Trump does.
One of the things that I've heard a lot on cable TV, and that is some of these pundits that talk a lot about Donald Trump, and I heard one theory is that Donald Trump is a deal maker. Always has been. He's a developer. He's from New York. He's brash. He's loud. We all know that. He's bombastic. But when he's in the art of making a deal, if I want $2 from you, Donald Trump is going to ask for 10, knowing he'll get 2 or 3.
Yep.
Is that what he's doing now in terms of, say, building the wall or immigration?
Yeah, I think that's what his supporters should realize, that when he says he wants to deport 11 million people, then he sits down and says, okay, let's deport the felons, let's deport the people who have never had a work history, that have been here 100% on, and you know what you'd get out of about 11 million? You get about 2 million. And then he'd say, that's fine. And he would take the 2 million and everybody would be happy, and then the 9 million who came here, they're working, they've never committed a crime, they didn't just get here on the sin of amnesty, they've been here 5 or 6 years, they would get a pathway to get a green card. Who knows whether they want to be citizens? That's their business. They'd have to qualify, pay a fine, but I don't think anybody wants to deport somebody who is working, has never committed a crime, and has been here for, say, 5 years.
An article that you wrote recently about the Iraq War, I read that online last night, and I found it as one of the most fascinating articles. And by the way, my friends out there, this is the article right there that Victor Davis Hanson wrote. I printed it out. You can go online and read it. I don't know where I guess I found it at the Hoover Institute.
National Review.
National, okay. Yeah. Interesting article about the true story about what happened with the Iraq War. And you say that Donald Trump wasn't, there's no evidence to support that he was ever against it. And
he was for it. He was, no, He was for it. Let's
He
get
was
that
for
clear.
it.
Yeah, he said
Okay.
that on Fox News and to Howard Stern. He wanted to invade and take out Saddam Hussein.
Yeah,
that's
but-
a matter of fact.
But so did Bill Clinton and all the Democrats.
So did every Democratic pundit. So did Hillary Clinton. So did John Kerry. So did Joe Biden. So did Harry Reid. Why did they turn on the Iraq War? Because of so-called WMD wasn't found in number? Not really, because they voted for 23 reasons to go into Iraq. How many had to deal with? Just 3 really dealt with WMD.
So why didn't anybody call Donald Trump out on that and call him a liar?
I did. He made it all up. And he said, I'm Saddam Hussein at least killed terrorists. No, he didn't. He had Abu Abbas, Abu Nadal, the architect of the 1993 World Trade Center. They were all in sanctuary in Baghdad. People got mad at Iraq not because they were against the idea of taking Saddam out, but because the occupation was messy. And then they said, my brilliant invasion of 3 weeks was ruined by your stupid occupation. And then when it got quiet, in the surge in 2007 and 8, which Obama opposed, suddenly when Obama came into office, the number of people who were killed in Iraq in 2009 were less than the monthly accident rate of the U.S. military.
Because of the insurgents.
Because they crushed the insurgency. They crushed al-Qaeda. So all of a sudden, Joe Biden got on TV and said, Iraq, perhaps, and I'm quoting directly, is our greatest achievement. Obama said, I'm going to leave behind a secure and self-reliant Iraq. They claimed it. And then they pulled out 40,000 peacekeepers, just as if you pull them all out of South Korea today. By the way, 60 years after the war. And then the whole country went to pot. And then they said, oh, George Bush did it. No, it was like Korea. It was stable in 2008. You pulled everybody out because you wanted a 2012, when they did it December 31st of 2011, you wanted a campaign talking point, and it ruined the country.
Why do we have such short memories? I mean, I remember all these politicians standing on the floor of the Senate, wanting to go into Iraq, wanting to take Saddam out. Like you said, Joe Biden, they all did it. And you had George Tenet, who was a Bill Clinton guy.
Bill Clinton,
who
slammed him.
who gathered all this evidence of WMDs and said, let's go in, and Bush gets all the blame. Why does that happen?
I don't know, but take the 3 most liberal venues today, the Washington Post, New Yorker Magazine, and the New Republic. I read it in 2002 and 2003. All they did was call for taking out Saddam. Liberal position was Saddam is a tyrant. He's killed 1 million people. He's gassed the Kurds. He doesn't let's get rid of him and give them a chance at democracy. That was the left-wing position. And then they did exactly what they wanted. They were all for the war. The statue fell. 90% of Americans were for it. Mission accomplished. Everybody loved Iraq. And then the insurgency happened. And then it was, John, you voted for it. Victor didn't. That's how it was.
Quickly, got 30 seconds. Any predictions on who will take Super Tuesday?
Well, I think Trump will win the vast majority, if not all, except Texas, of the primaries and caucuses. And then he will have a sizable lead in the delegates, but he will not have enough delegates to have a sure path to the nomination yet. That won't happen for 2 weeks when we get the winner-take-all primary.
Okay, does he win the nomination in your estimation, real quick?
I think it's a 50-50 chance. I have a feeling that if he does not win it by April 1st, you'll have a deadlock, and if there's any deadlock, he'll lose.
And Hillary takes tonight?
Oh, yes, she will.
Okay, Victor?
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Come back again soon.
I will.
I'd love to have you. It's my pleasure seeing you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Victor Davis Hanson works at the Hoover Institution at Stanford University, and also an author, a columnist, and a military historian. And no one, by the way, knows Greek history better than this man sitting next to me, Victor Davis Hanson. See you tomorrow with Dennis Hart and the results of Super Tuesday.
The following is a list of celebrities you will not see on MeTV programs. Charlie Sheen, Lindsay Lohan, Snooki, Paris Hilton, Perez Hilton, Honey Boo Boo, Justin Bieber, Simon Cowell, Chris Brown, Miley Cyrus, and the Real Housewives of any place. This is who you will see on MeTV programs. Lucy, Ralph, Mary, Perry, Gilligan,